Hey, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Event Marketers Toolbox. I'm Chris Dunn. I am with Blue Hive Exhibits. I've got a couple of awesome industry legends here with me today. So this is going to be a great conversation. Thanks for joining us. Kicking it over to my co-host, Dana Esposito. Hey, Dana, how's it going?
Hey, Chris. Both Chris's.
Many Chris's.
So I am Dana Esposito. I'm also with Blue Hive Exhibits. I've been in the industry 30 years, and I come from exhibit design as a designer, and also engagements, and also corporate strategy. And today we have one of my favorite industry people. We have Chris Griffin with us. Chris, you want to tell us a little bit about sort of who you are, where you came from?
Hey guys, it's great to be with you. I appreciate the invite and being invited on to the Toolbox. I'm an active listener, and I know for you it probably feels like you haven't been doing this long, but man, you guys hit the ground running. Great guests, great format, professionalized. I'm a student of this medium. That'd be a great conversation about what podcasts are like in all of our lives now. But it's like you started in third gear already. So congratulations
Thank
on
you
the
so
show.
much. Thank you so much.
And as you know, I'm finishing up my final year as the EDPA president. That's the Experiential Designer and Producers Association. For those that don't know, that is a collection of about 300 companies that are the majority of which are the designers and builders. But we certainly have a lot of the service contractors and the suppliers to the industry as well. So it's a good group. This is I think my 10th year between board work and then being on the executive committee. Previously to that, I had done a 10-year stint through the officer ranks as well with the EACA, the Exhibitor Appointed Contractors Association, and I currently serve on as the treasurer for the Exhibition Conferences Alliance, which is not an association. It's actually a collection of about 10 organizations that have common causes like advocacy and building back workforce and all of that good stuff. So, and really our industry has come together a lot more in the last 5 years than it ever has been previously. So on my day job, I have a company called Crew XP. We design and build and support only exhibit houses and experiential agencies. We do not work directly with brands, but we have big facilities in Las Vegas and Orlando, Florida. Orlando's where I'm at today. So thrilled to be with you. Thanks for inviting me.
Awesome. Well, that's first of all, thanks for being here. Honestly, you mentioned just the medium. I started listening to your podcast several years ago, and I found it tremendously useful to kind of, you guys were very industry specific. So you were always doing these deep dives into these really nichey little things that not just anybody, wanted to hear, but that's part of, we find our tribe and we figure out who we're talking to and we make sure our messaging resonates with those people. And just
by the way, I'm so successful, Chris, 3 years in, I've developed tens and tens of followers.
Tens and tens. That's fantastic. You could how do you monetize that?
Well,
you can't go to the grocery store without being asked for an autograph.
If I'm at the right show, there's often a free beer out of it. So,
there you go. But seeing your podcast and what you guys were doing kind of led me down a similar path. We had Caitlin Correa last week on, who is the CEO and president of Blue Hive. And I kind of told a little bit of the backstory of how we evolved from let's up our LinkedIn game and become more thought leaders. And then, this show, would be a great medium to do that. So that's a great segue because we have a couple of sponsors that sponsor our show. Blue Hive Exhibits being one of them. We are obviously a creative agency. We've got East Coast and West Coast representation with full shops, full working warehouses in both locations. We like to say that we're kind of in that right-sized model where we're not small. We have boutique-like qualities in that we're awesome and creative and great to work with. But we're also not the big guys where you're just a number, right? Customer service, creativity, and end-to-end help with your trade show exhibit programs is really what we specialize in that end. But we're also sponsored by Fist Bump. Fist Bump is the group that's actually helping us produce this show, right? So, Chris, you mentioned, what's it like to, have a show and use that platform to kind of share a lot of information. I was attempting to do this on my own, and it was not happening. It was a full-on fail, as it were, with me being able to get it launched. So the reason that it looked like we hit the ground running in third gear is because Fist Bump does all the heavy lift for us, and we're super thankful. So we've got Juana on the producers board today, but a great organization through and through. If anybody else out there is interested in doing a show, they help us with all the production, with all of the promotion. They hand us the clips post show and use those pieces as valuable content to share. So a great nod to that group, and we appreciate it. This is going to be a great conversation today. Again, thanks for joining us. We have a live show, which normally we do, but we're here on the Toolbox. We hopefully have a lot of folks checking in on LinkedIn, YouTube. After the fact, this will be available on all of your favorite podcast platforms, but feel free to ask questions. Folks kind of checking in from the outside, let us know where you're at, but ask some questions and we'll try to work those into the conversation. So, Dana, I'm going to kick it back to you and Mr. Griffin to start us off, telling us a little bit about the EDPA.
Sure. So the Experiential Designers and Producers Association, as Chris Griffin mentioned, it's basically, for those of you who may not know, it's basically a large nonprofit organization that focuses on charitable works within our industry, education, and the future health of our industry. And there are a lot of different components of course, the EDPA. There is the board of directors, there's the executive committee. Then if I was doing an imaginary org chart, so to speak, we have all of the committees, and the committees are really on the ground doing a lot of work, and their members, they're volunteers from all different companies, whether it's an exhibit house or vendors and partners and providers. They all get together and they all have goals that they work on together. And then there's also the chapters that are regional. And that's the chapters. There's a lot of local things that happen. That's where a lot of future leaders sort of bloom and start getting involved in EDPA. So the EDPA is a wonderful organization for our industry and protects us as well. And Chris Griffin is in his second year of being our fearless leader, our president right now. And I've learned a lot from listening to him speak and to seeing how he works. And so I'm very appreciative for all the work that he does within the industry beyond the company of Crew XP that he has. So Chris, the first question for you is, can you share some of your perspective on the state of the industry and the role of EDPA driving industry change?
Sure. First of all, thank you for the kind words. And maybe the second question first on the role of EDPA. For those that aren't, I know everybody's probably, your listeners are probably aware of who they are, but an association, any association exists to support and advance the interests of a group of like-minded businesses or people. We typically share a common profession or business interest. It might be tax policy. It might be, in our case, workforce. I think it's workforce with a lot of people. It's basically, it's the laws or rules or regulations that affect all of us for good or for bad. If you're a member of the National Federation of Independent Businesses, that's a huge organization. PCMA, we know, this is EDPA's, again, about 300 company members. And I got to tell you, it became really critical, obviously during pandemic, when we were a coma patient and we were desperate for the medical attention of the United States government to help us get a pulse back and start to get up and rehab and move again. But I think, separately, this is just my opinion. I think we all agree that Tommy Goodwin and I were having this conversation. He's the executive director of the ECA, our political advisor. Political thinking, would you guys agree, is invading every area of our lives these days. We think about the political view when we see our neighbors across the street or our coworkers. Strangers, how about the brands you use? I don't want to do business with this company, or I do because of this or this. I find even the musicians I listen to, who are speaking up, it may affect their opinion. So, doesn't it make sense if you're not active in EDPA? Doesn't it make sense to be part of something or a group that has common interests? And let's get closer to those apparatuses, those infrastructures like local government or federal or charity work or whatever it is. Let's get closer to it as a group to have more impact on that. So I don't care which side of the political fence you live on. I think people want to feel they have some type of an influence over those things in their lives. So Tommy Goodwin has a great expression he always tells me. He said, if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. And we learned that on Capitol Hill, right? Where this last round of legislative action day, and I know we may come back to that, but there were 4 things we were talking about up there. The 4 T's. We were talking about taxes, tax policy, because this one that was just renewed in the bill, all small businesses were going to get a 20% tax increase if those version 1 Trump tax cuts were allowed to expire. They were supposed to be temporary. So that was their original intent. But if they weren't renewed, we're all paying 20% more tax. So tariffs was another one. Travel, we're still fighting the good fight on visa wait times, which is really just a function of how well staffed the embassies are. But how come it takes 589 days to get a business visa to come to a trade show if you live in India, right? China's down to 70 days. There's hundreds of days of waiting, and we still don't have about half of those international travelers coming back. And for those keeping score, 30% of all participants in the U.S. trade show game, that's exhibitors and attendees, 30% of them come from other countries. So we need to make it easy for them to come here. And then the last thing was the 4th T was talent, which is workforce. We all get and understand that, we had this near extinction event that happened in March of 2020 for us. 2.8 million full-time employees in our industry were laid off, furloughed, or terminated. To date, a little more than 10% of them, about 300,000, have not returned. We already had an aging problem. The average age of the person on the show floor, working on the show floor, was between 56 and 58 years old, depending on what city you were in. Same with the back of the house trade skills labor, like the master carpenters and the cabinet makers. So we already had an aging out problem. And then you look at those folks that didn't come back. And so as we try and repopulate the industry, we're realizing if you're 26 years old and under, most of them have never heard of our industry. And most of them have no interest in a trade skills job. So EDPA has been leading the charge the last 5 years. We really are working hard to do some things to, so aging problem with the older group, we have an exposure problem with the younger group. So how do we get out there and tell them who we are and let them know you can make a great living and support your families? And it's not just working with a saw in a shop. We need project managers and designers and salespeople and accounting people. So anyway, an association, just to close out that, is a great medium, a great vehicle for us to come together and unite with other industry associations around these common causes that need the same type of help that we do. So super proud of what EDPA has become. Dana, you mentioned the chapters. So I think one of the things I'll walk away, I was asked recently, can you write your obituary as EDPA president? I guess they ask all presidents to do that. What do you want to be remembered for? I love the fact that I've been part of a group that has helped strengthen that, the chapters. I go back to when I first joined EDPA. There's 2 big chapters that kind of led the pack. I remember when the Northeast chapter, where you guys are, got started, and now it's a powerhouse, right? So it's Dana said it. We have 25 full-time board members, of which we elect 6 to be on the executive committee. That group does sort of the day-to-day decision-making. And where do we get the talent in the board, in the EC? Well, typically for the EC, you look at the full board to try and move people up. That's where the doers are and the people that want to do association work. And we look at the chapters to populate the national board. And the chapters, there's 9 chapters, all great, all active, all espousing the 4 key pillars of EDPA. By the way, the way I always remember the 4, what is it we stand for again? I think of the word GAIN, right? Good works, advocacy, great networking events, and education. You may or may not be aware that since the recovery of pandemic, 1 in 3 people that work in this industry are now new to the industry. 1 in 3. So we have a need for material to, not just train them up and coach them up. Maybe it's just, tools like this podcast to help onboard them. If you're coming from an ad agency, but not from the face-to-face event world, man, you go through your library of Toolbox episodes. Let me tell you something. They're going to learn an awful lot about this industry. So I love how our industry is looking right now in terms of the maturity and the professionalizing that's happening particularly within the EDPA community. So
yeah, if I could kind of add to that, I really felt like when we had no work, right, during the pandemic, which the word that shall remain unnamed, which we talk about all the time. But we felt like what it was to have no work and how empty everything was. It was horrible. And the need to kind of raise the tide for everybody. So I felt like at that point, the color of your laundry, the company that you represented at that point became so much less concerning or important. And it was more about like, we're all in this together. We've got to work together to bring this thing back up.
Yeah.
So as somebody who kind of has that 10,000 or even 30,000 foot view of the industry, it's great to hear that you're seeing, it's not just something I felt, but it's something that you're seeing across the board where there's a lot of us that are competitors, but yet we're friendly competitors. There's people who move between the companies. So you naturally have relationships with people who work at other companies that you compete against, but yet we can all join together and make sure that our industry is robust and strong, and we're doing the right thing to do all the things, right, to make shows the ROI for our clients better so that they experience a better show experience and they want to spend the money to come back. Because let's face it, it's an expensive venture, right? It's gotta work, right? So raising the bar, across the board just raises the tide and lifts all ships, as it were.
But the door I came into the industry as an owner was really on the labor side, right? And so there's a great word. If you're out at a big show, there's always been this spirit of co-opetition that exists between the labor companies. Hey man, my genie lift is down at the other end of the hall, but if I'm a legit guy, I know that I can go to I know the guys from Nth and the guys from Eagle and Momentum or Lime, and I can I can grab your 16-foot ladder and you can do the same thing. Or if you need something out of my job box, I think that's always existed in the I&D world. We're fierce competitors to get the work. Once the shows are moving in, we've always been that. I think since pandemic, and I think we're far enough past it, Chris and Dana, that we can now say this and not whisper it. And that is, there's some positives that came out of that pandemic. I can list them in my company, but one of them is the different associations, service contractors and the builders and the labor companies and the association executives. They were very siloed, and we didn't necessarily play well with each other. That is so not the case. We see each other at everyone's industry associations. We typically are inviting the leadership from other associations to ours, and we are for sure coming together on common causes like sustainable practices, or like we would on Legislative Action Day. But we're pooling dollars. We need a video for the industry to go out to all these schools and places globally to teach young people what this industry really looks like. So, if I have in my budget, let's say $5,000 for that kind of a project, but I turn to 5 or 6 other like-minded associations, now I've got a real budget and we can put something together that we can all use. We're doing way more stuff like that. Yeah. And that breaks down barriers on some stuff that used to be hard to talk to each other about. So that's, again, I think it was the crisis, near extinction event that realized we really do need each other, and we're kinder and more cooperative with each other, and I love that.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
We got a good comment here from Chris Musgrave, and Chris, I know you're a regular viewer and listener here, so appreciate the input. He's saying it's far too much sub renting that, to still call each other competitors, and that's a great point, right? We think about all of the AV partners that are out there, and half the times, you're using a Smart Source or AV Dimensions or something, and all the gear comes in and it's got everybody else's names all over it, right? So that side of the house is definitely figured out a collaborative effort. And the idea that, like, if I got a bunch of stuff sitting in my warehouse and you want to rent it at a discounted rate, and no one else is going to rent it, then by all means, like, this is a business model that you've heavily leaned into. Obviously, Chris is as a white label producer, really somebody who supplies people like us. You've got key locations, you've got all the frames, all the cabinets, and all the stuff, in those, forward deployed locations that we can lean into and use you guys as a really important, partner. It kind of, so that's the other thing, right? Too, is like, rather than viewing each other as competitors, is the idea of like, how can we partner together? We might compete against each other on some things over here, but over here we can have a good working relationship.
That's a great point. First of all, thank you for the mention of that. But we're all busy in the busy seasons. And our model is only to the trade partners. And really, we really aren't opening our doors to walk up or casual or occasional business. We're looking for people that see us more as a strategic partner, because we've made a huge investment in facilities and talent and inventory. So we want that available for the people that use us regularly. However, there's this silent community of, like, a Blue Hive and a Crew XP in Las Vegas. I'm literally right next door to Blue Hive. Like, if you were going to go borrow a cup of sugar from a neighbor, Blue Hive's who I would walk over. And I think there's the Eagle Rider Harley Davidson dealers, the only people between us and Blue Hive. So
next time I'm out there, I'm going to do that. I'm going to come to you and ask for
sugar. Griffin promised me sugar. But your director of ops has been in my shop if he's 7 or 11 frames short on something, and we've done the same. We heavily invested in some cool looking, custom drop in place cabinets, right, with the LED lighting in the top and in the bottom. But if you need 51 of them that match, there's not a ton of people that might have that, right? So those sort of that are in the partnering with others know that we might be an option to look at in a couple of markets. But no, you're right. I think the comment that Chris made was dead on. We're partnering up too often, and by the way, I'd love to come back and we have another conversation why that is good, profitable, economic sense to do those things, especially if you're a smaller mid-sized company. You're not really able to afford to invest in the inventory or the infrastructure of facility and people. But if you want to compete in major markets, Boston, San Fran, Las Vegas, Florida, Atlanta, there's very often a local partner that you can partner with. EDPA is a great way, not to do another plug there, to meet that community. So this is much more normal post-pandemic than I think it was before. So
when I first started the industry 30 years ago, it felt much more competitive in a negative way, more the traditional, like it's us against them, like it's always us against them. And then as we got towards sort of the whole COVID situation, some of those barriers were dissolving, and it was more like, because our industry is small enough that it's very incestuous, right? People move around from company to company, and it's more like, well, I don't work at that company anymore, but those are still my friends. Those are still my professional friends, and they lean on each other. And then COVID happened, and to your point, Chris Griffin, it really kind of was this magnetic pull together. And it amplified literally like what EDPA EDPA is that's their core. That's the whole point behind EDPA. And now it seems to be more of the common way of thinking for so many companies, which I love. And I'm not trying to talk about EDPA incessantly here, but say the EDPA, like with the mentorship program, which has been around for easily over a decade, like before I was even helping in it, it existed, right? And so essentially, if you think of that in its simplest form, there are college students that are being mentored by people working at companies that they may never go and work at those companies. So essentially, someone from your company is mentoring someone who may go work at a competitor, right? So that is that future workforce and like selfless sharing of knowledge for educational purpose for the industry. And to me, I love how that feeling is throughout the industry now. And I've worked at companies, to your point, Chris, that were like, say it's a mid-sized company and they need another 50 B matrix panels. They know who their friendly competitors are that they can rent them from. And to your point, that's a great way to make your company larger without a large investment. And you're still serving your client very well. And I don't know, I think that's a really healthy way to, to have partners, right? And even your providers are not vendors. They are also your partners. Like everybody's your partner.
Last week, I know you had your president on, she was talking about trust, right? As one of the main topics. And this is what we're talking about. It's funny to me. We still will get an email request from somebody who might, let's just say it's 20 counters and 10 3-meter back walls, and they will redact or black out like the name of their end user client. And it's like, seriously, are you thinking we're going to call them directly? I mean, we just, at some point you do have to trust. And again, our model is we won't work directly with them. But I like, you're right about how incestuous this industry is. I used to tell people it's like the Kevin Bacon game, right? In Hollywood, right? 3 names and we're all connected back. I think we're all we're in the crisis management business. That's what the event industry is. And so when I talk to young people, we need critical thinkers. People think like this. And sometimes you're valuable, not because of what you know, and it's not even because of who you know. It might be what you know about who you know that gets that favor done, or has somebody turn the car around on a Friday and has their warehouse guy meet them and they come and pull something for you because you need it Saturday. I will say this, we are deliberately trying to leave the 911 exhibit business behind, right? Because it's just, we were those guys and we thought, hey, that's how we'll earn all this business. And the truth is it didn't. We just became a place where problems collected. So, but every one of us has that. And hopefully it's why you have great processes and great people leading those processes in your shops, because like you're like us, right? You're dress rehearsing everything before it goes out to show site, because that the same mystical force that removes the sock from the dryer when you do laundry, it takes stuff out of the exhibit crate by the time it shows up at show site. So dress rehearsals are the best way.
Yeah. Murphy's Law is always
shows up.
Yeah, Murphy's Law is always lurking somewhere in the shadows, and you're right. It almost doesn't matter what your talent is, because we can apply so many of your talents in this industry. You just need to be a get shit done person. Like if whatever your role is, plus you're a get shit done of one of those people, this industry is perfect.
I'm not sure HR allows us to word it that way.
I live on the cusp of HR.
The gray. She plays in the gray area.
I'm in the gray area. They know.
Exactly.
I sense that you skipped the litigation avoidance seminar.
I watched it, but I don't understand big words. So.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, you lost me at litigation. Chris Musgrave with another good point here is, in this, it's all about brand alignment, right? With the latest model of the absorption of these mega vendors, right? The smaller independent people need to stick together in order to be able to, find opportunities. Freeman continues to absorb, right? And we have to work with them, but at the same time, they're not shy about wanting to compete with us too on the front end.
No, but Chris, to your point about like the collection of those vendors, I had a great guy that ran manufacturing for Skyline back in the 90s when I was coming up as a sales rep. He was a 3M guy, and he talked about the need for creating oneness. He was talking with the company, but he did this with his fingers. So anybody that's just listening, not watching, I apologize. But this is what you want the client to see. But really, you've got graphic vendors and freight vendors and an outsourced vendor, but we know. I'm fine when people go, how come I've never heard of you guys? Because we're invisible ink. Because people don't like to promote that they're outsourcing work. It doesn't mean it's not a good business sense. So we'll line up wherever you tell us in that oneness effort of your. I don't even like the word network anymore. I like collective.
I like oneness. I'd heard it is a we-ness in the past, but then when you say we-ness, it just sometimes can get weird.
Yeah,
so
you know
oneness.
what? You're getting back into that HR danger zone.
Mine was much safer, just for clarity.
Okay, listen, we got 30 minutes under our belt already here, and we have touched on legislative action day, but I want to kind of swing back to that because you've done 6 of these, and you described briefly kind of the evolution of what you've seen, kind of going from pre-COVID to post-COVID. You go in, you've got a reason to be there. You guys did a nice job of ranging, your main points as the 4 T's. But give us, I guess, a little bit more of a peek behind the curtain, Chris. Is like, what does this look like this past year? How many people from the EDPA went down? You must have had like 60, 80 people with you?
So set a record for our group on Capitol Hill. We had 170 companies participating. About a third of those were EDPA members.
Okay.
And I will tell you that I just can't say enough. Tommy Goodwin and the job he does and his team does on the front end, and that's the appointment setting. That's the know before you go calls to prepare you. You really, from my very first time to what I just experienced, the anxiety is removed. We all get together at 8 o'clock for breakfast the morning that we're going to be on the Hill, as they say. And when you sit down at your table, there's a packet that if I'm representing caucusing with the Florida delegation, or if you're with the Massachusetts, you've got statistics and data about how many events and how many people are employed and the economic impact in your state. So you're ready for that. You've got a little bullet point list of the 4 things we're talking about and some talking points for each. There's a QR code that you can scan and get that sheet that you have. So, I mean, we just are really, really well prepared. The transportation very often is moved around. The people that do the scheduling try to not have, it's a lot of walking, but they try to not have you crisscrossing from the Russell building to the Hart building to back over to the congressional offices are in 2 buildings and the Senate office are in 2 buildings. And we're probably all going to have lunch in the rotunda under the Capitol, where us and 2,000 high school kids that have been bussed in will all share a meal together. Okay. But it is our chance to speak truth to power. I've made this the thing I've stuck with every year because I lived through pandemic. I lived through what happened to the economy when 9/11 happened. When that happened, it took 4 years for our industry to get back to the same economic level with events as it was before. When the housing collapsed, October 2008, really 2009, the economy collapsed. It was 10 years to get back to where we were at the same robust economic attendance level and spend level that was going into your local economies. Then we had this thing, I don't know what you call it and how long it'll take. Chances are there's going to be something again. But what we learned when we went up on Capitol Hill for pandemic is, guys, our elected officials never heard of us. We were contributing $101 billion in 2019 to the U.S. economy. That is some indirect, but it's the exhibit trees and the hotels and the airlines just to get going there.
That's just U.S., Chris? That's not global, right? That's just U.S.
That's North America, yeah.
And that's billion with a B, not million with an M.
That's great. They thought we were the home show guys. Oh yeah, I've been to a home show or a boat show. It took 2 years for them to really understand. When we go up there now, they go, "Oh no, we know who you we know who you guys are."
Right.
So the challenge, I would say, is even greater right now, right? With, like the Avengers say, without that asteroid event pending, without the crisis that everybody's paying attention to, how do we stay relevant? So when we need them the next time, right? And we do that through engagements. We pick one day a year, we go up and make sure you know who we are. We pick meaningful topics to talk about. We stay in touch with them throughout the year. We tap into local press, whether it's, and now podcasting is a new way to get out there, and you can tag people that are important to make sure are listening to this. But so this is invisible no more. We can't afford to wait, because do you know how many thousands of small businesses closed while we were ramping up? A few of us got PPP1, by the way, ECA and the stakeholders. We were in the room with Senator Marco Rubio's staff, putting some of that language together in those early days. We were in those discussions when there was PPP2. We learned about the EIDL loans and the Main Street loans, and we did a good job, and a lot of our members, sort of tapped into that. This is what we do. And now I think advocacy is not just, you should take a look at trade and do trade shows. We are an industry that, almost 100% of us are small businesses, right? Which make up 50% of the US economy. So every single trade show or business event like that is its own small business incubator, right? So I think what we do, guys, is like very, very noble. I think we help the world trade. And that's, if you want to help, not to get on a soapbox here, if you want to help Ukraine, or you want to help the people of Gaza, or you want us to send money to whatever cause you feel is important, we need a healthy economy, raging economy, to be able to afford to do those things. So I think we're on the team that is all about supporting that. So
I was so surprised back at the beginning of COVID when some of the numbers and data was coming out of really how much money our industry pushes into the country and to cities, and to recognize that the money from our industry literally helps keep some cities running. The businesses and the individuals, whether it's, servers at a restaurant, transportation, you name it. So the exhibits and event industry is vital. I was surprised about the data. I was impressed, being in it. I kind of assumed, but to see the numbers is always like, I love metrics. And then on top of that, when you guys were first going down to DC and you were telling us, reporting back about, of course, I didn't even think that, that was something people like us could do, right? And then here you guys are, like, heading the charge down there. And I was so impressed, but I was shocked to hear that they really didn't think of us. They didn't know of us. They didn't understand it. They didn't know of our industry. And to the extent, they also had no idea of those numbers either. And so I just thought it was so valiant what you guys were doing. And I love that you still go down there and it continues to grow. And now they literally know who you guys are, like who we are, who our industry is when you go down there. So I would love more people from our industry to, reach out to you guys and go down for Legislative Actions Day. And if someone likes the idea of it and they're intimidated by it, because some people have said that to me as a board of director person as well. And I've said, the team really makes a point of giving you all the information that you need. So it's not scary. It's really good. And it's everyone who I know who has gone has had nothing but great positive response and said that they are so glad that they participated. So I encourage people to do that. And personally, I just really appreciate that people take the time out of their, because everything that people do for this industry beyond their day job or EDPA, really, that's another thing, right? On top of family and work, that people are finding time because it's important and worthy. So I just really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you saying all that. Part of what this discussion is about is, the vision or where do we see the industry going? I see this being a thing that sticks. By the way, I took my oldest daughter 1 year, because when's she ever going to get a chance to see how the United States government actually works? Tommy, another thing Tommy Gooden says, he goes, were you shocked to learn that the country's run by a bunch of 26-year-olds based on 15-minute meetings? And I go, I actually feel better, when you realize, because they really are great. And every one of them has to write a paper up and present it to their member about who they meet with. And there's a lot that happens. But anyway, I love that our industry is is sophisticated enough now that we care about this.
Pulling together,
and shout out to Dasher Lowe, our executive director. He's carrying the torch, keeping this culture alive all year long. So are the chapter presidents, and guys like Rob Cohen and Matthew Little and I mean, there's too many to name, so I apologize for missing people. But we really have a great group that shows up. We show up.
We do.
Good. And we all love data, right? And we're all being in the industry for a number of years. People are always throwing these acronyms at you. Oh, trade shows. Yeah. Do you know, my company goes to AABLM, and you're like, do you understand that there's 13,500 shows that happen just in the US alone? Like, I don't know all the acronyms, and no, we're not involved.
We love our TLAs.
Absolutely.
3-letter acronyms. Right. So,
all right. Dana, let's get to, the valuable relationships built in the event industry. We're talking about it in different ways, but let's kind of circle back. This is one other piece that we wanted to just kind of hit on, the importance of it, how it happens. And obviously we're talking about the benefits of it, right? When you've got a bunch of individuals working in silos, they're only as powerful as their own piece, right? But when you pull together, then you can become a whole lot more, the sum is greater than the whole.
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't tell me there was going to be math. There's math involved.
Sorry.
You're really good at math. You're fine.
I would have studied differently.
You wouldn't have worn socks, so you could easily count your toes.
So Chris Griffin. So there's a lot of Chris's on the call today. So Chris Griffin. So can you talk a little bit about your approach to fostering collaborative and thriving business environment in the events industry, especially as a business owner, or points for people who aren't a business owner?
I'm thinking of two things right now, because I think for the sales staff that's listening to your episode this week, is you're thinking about relationships probably with your clients, right? Which is important to foster. But I think what you're talking about is really it's the vendor partnerships and the industry partnerships. So we are an industry that is made up of leaning on each other. There's nobody, I don't care. We do it all in-house. No, you don't. You don't own your own tractor trailer trucks to ship from one place to another, right? You probably don't own all your own LED skins or AV, right? So, I think in two ways, but I'm also a fulfillment partner for others. So I think about, am I looking for relationships of people, of companies that are going to send work to me, or am I looking for relationships with people that are going to fulfill work for me? And I do have different criteria for each one of those. But I think step one is, if you guys know you're looking for a new AV vendor or a new freight carrier relationship, it would be helpful if you know the things that are most important to you. So for example, freight. I pick freight companies by the dispatcher. I love my sales reps, but let me tell you something. When it's knuckle down time, does that dispatcher take my call at night or on the weekend? Can they say, let me call you back in 5 minutes? And they're on the phone with the driver. And here's one we get a lot, and tell me you guys don't occasionally get this, Chris. They go, no, I just checked in. Driver's already at the marshalling yard. No. And by the way, if you hit up the Experience Builders stuff, we did, my partner who was with a VP with GES for 10 years, the guy that runs our Vegas operation, Martin was in charge of the marshalling yard at one point for the CES show and ConAg, ConExpo, and so your driver says he's there. He's in line to get a number so he can get into the marshal line. That's not being there. Right? So one thing he talked about was, no, my driver said he's there. What's his number? So if he already got a number and he's just waiting to be dispatched, he'll have a number. If they go, what are you talking about? He's been there since 6 a.m. No, he's not in yet, right? So so if I'm choosing a vendor, I want somebody that is fluent if you're freight in all of those things. Bad sign if you come to pick up the three booths that are going to the same show, and you show up with a 26-foot box truck, and this is going to take 43 feet of trailer to put in these assets non-stackable. Why do we not want them non-stackable? Because we don't want to get hit for special handling, which this is what they do. Anyway, whether it's AV, so what I look for is, what's my criteria? If you can write that, maybe there's 3 things, maybe there's 13 things, but I think it would be helpful to when you're selecting those partners, know what it is you're looking for. I know we have a lot of customers, and I don't know how you guys do it, but a lot of times project managers and account managers are allowed to pick their vendors. My recommendation as we've gotten larger and more mature is we have a preferred vendor, and that's our primary, and they probably get 70% of our work. And then we have 2 others, and we'll split between them. And they know where they are in our pecking order, and they're vying for a bigger opportunity, right? But what we don't do is have 10 different vendors that we all just shop on price, because there's too much riding on it, right? So anyway, those relationships I'm investing in, Dana, is I'm looking for something like that criteria. I'll be honest, the relationships with other associations like Julie Kagi and the ESCA team, right? Like Vinny Polito, who runs the CISO, the Society of Independent Show Organizers. Those guys have a different perspective. I've been to their conference. Holy cow, are they smart? And they're smart in ways I don't think about. We're worried about, did we get exhibitors coming back? Those guys are obsessing about the fact that 30% that attendance is down, right? And I used to think, they only care about making money off of whatever their fund, their kickback is on material handling, or or electrical. I've been in those meetings. They have detailed conversations that their show they're in the lead generation business. So they're thinking about, how do we create opportunities and moments for sponsors, which we call exhibitors, to be able to generate those leads and capture those leads. So they think about the technology, and they think about other events, like not on the show floor around, that are tied to that bring community together. So I'm just really, I think it's worth investing in learning about those other areas of industry that are involved. And if you can get a networking opportunity where you meet some of those people, I'm telling you, good things happen. Anybody you meet, and we know this from trade shows, right? You go face to face with somebody and you have a beverage or a coffee or a meal together. They're taking your call right after the event. I know you now. Chris, I see your stuff all the time. You're hooking up with people for coffee or a beer or at a show. And if there's a business need, right? Relationship deposits have to be made. You can't just, somebody calls me 13 years ago, we worked together, and you're calling me on a Sunday night for a crisis Monday morning. You've made no deposits in the relationship. You just want a withdrawal, right? I think you have to make 4 deposits before you're entitled to make a withdrawal in a relationship. So that's kind of what I look for.
Perfect. And I'm glad you kind of quantified that with a number, right? It's like,
right.
Hey, I bought your coffee that one time.
You don't, otherwise you're like, Dunn, stop calling me. Stop calling me.
Hey, we're getting some other comments here. John Japay is he's checking in. You're right, John, right? So there's something that happens once every 10 years ish, and we're halfway through where something weird is going to happen again, unfortunately. And we see you there, KG. A little late to the game, but yes, you can absolutely go back. Our show is obviously being recorded on tape, on 8-track tapes, for the older audience. So you can watch it again here on LinkedIn. You can see it on YouTube, and again, it shows up on the platform. Chris, we're usually trying to dial in our time frame at about 45 to 50 minutes. We're there, but there's really one important thing that we want to hit on.
Is that the next thing you're looking for? In conclusion,
what I want to talk about really briefly is sustainability, right? And this is honestly, this is another show that's coming at us. This is hours worth of conversation, But Chris, prior to, we'll kind of zoom in on that a little bit. Prior to our show, said, hey, here's some things that I'm thinking about. You provided me with an ESCA's top 10 industry sustainability practices in 2025. This is something, it's a PDF. It's got a bunch of really great things that we're actually, by and large, already doing that are kind of moving the needle. But we're going to put this in the show notes after the fact so people can go find this PDF. But Chris, give us a little kind of sneak peek into some of the things
This is
on here.
Big shout out. I don't know if she signed on. I thought I might have seen her register. Julie Kagi with ESCA. So, there's everybody's talking about sustainability, and I'm not the guy to run a sustainability committee, but I think Julie said, well, that's one of the reasons I want you to help me just deliver a quick update. And she was able to grab, 10 things we're all doing that you might not even realize we're doing, but it is moving the ball downfield in the subject of good sustainable practices. I said to Chris earlier, I was like, we all remember high school keg parties and the 13 girl sleepover that your daughter had and the county fair and whatever, these big messes, and somebody had to clean it up after, or someone got in trouble. And now we're just a global world of business people, and we do all these events, and yeah, somebody cleans it up, but I don't think we do it in a very good way. And one of the ways we can improve that is using better materials when we build. It used to be more expensive. It's not anymore. And what Julie reminded us, first of all, another positive that came from pandemic, we're living on Zoom and mediums like this. So there's less people flying for business events, and you go, oh, that's not a good thing. No, it still doesn't mean we're not going to have a robust industry, but that lowers a carbon footprint. If we have, if 6 people don't get on a plane for a company meeting, they can do it via Zoom. Renewable energy, man, the venues, the convention centers are absolutely pouring money into solar and wind and alternative energy stuff. I always used to joke about, as a labor company, we had 100% renewable energy product, right? And our energy plan was based on meals and naps, and then they would come back and they would be 100% charged the next day. The waste management, crushing, recycling, reusable booths are back. The aluminum products we're using, which are lighter weight, less, obviously it's great for your material handling bill, but they can be stripped and cleaned. I mean, we have 3,000 or 4,000 frames and aluminum frames in our inventory, and they're really well made, and they can be cleaned and reused, right? We've got fabric graphics that are being made out of recycled material. We have carpeting that's being recycled. All of that is actually happening now. You've got freight carriers that are thinking about the logistical planning of how shipments are consolidated, shorter routes. It's not all dedicated trucks. Most people are thinking no longer about single use of something. They're using it more than once. But I can, on your 20-foot boot, I can wrap up your 20-foot mural or 2 10-foot fabric murals, and you can put them in your laptop bag and take them with you after the show. And then your hardware, your framework, and your reception counter, your lead station can all go back to the local place, which is 4.6 miles from that venue, right? There's all kinds of cool stuff like that. Anyway, so I'd love to share that list and let people look at that, but it gives you some meaningful stuff you can share with your client if you get asked, what are you doing about, sustainable practices?
Right. And we are being asked, right? So this is a proactive move that we have to make. We're I wouldn't say inundated with RFPs, but there's a fair amount of them coming at us, which is great. And the bulk of them ask about our sustainability practice, right? So 5 years
Chris,
ago,
we're known as a wasteful industry.
Yeah.
You get one elected official, and maybe it's not this administration, maybe it's the next one, but you get one of them that uncovers how wasteful our industry typically has been. And they want to start assigning us what rules and regulations are. And we don't want that. We want to get ahead of this on our own, and we want to be able to brag to them, because nobody wants the mean parent making the rules.
That is why I
don't do being grounded very well. I've
That
learned.
is why what I love what the EDPA Sustainability Committee worked really hard on. I'm a late joiner to the Sustainability Committee itself, but that committee has done so much work. It's Tommy and Glenn Hansen, and there's so many
Yeah.
people. The document that they have put together, that PDF, and if, Chris Griffin, if you reach out to him, he can give it to you.
Sure.
Really being ahead of the game for our industry, so we're more in control of the sustainability instead of something becoming a rule or a law driven by someone else who doesn't understand the position we're in. We're basically getting ahead of that, is what what Chris Griffin's really saying. So it's sustainable material from where it comes from. It oftentimes recycled before we even get our hands on the material. Most of it can be reused, and the stuff that can't be reused is repurposed or recycled. I was shocked, amazed, and so impressed with all of the information and frankly, the amount of friggin' work that went into that, you guys.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And you got to remember,
Well,
these are people from all different competing companies who work together to put that together for the health, the future of our industry. Amazing.
you mentioning Glenn Hansen just triggered. So we did this for EDPA Access this past December. It was the very first time. People say, well, what's the carbon footprint of your? Now you can care about that. You can not care about that, but this is something we should know. So he literally tracked through a questionnaire. How did you get here? Did you fly? Did you drive? How many of you were on the plane? We tracked our food consumption. The hotel gave information about the electrical usage of what we did. We didn't know what an event cost or footprint looks carbon footprint looks like. But now we have a benchmark to start moving forward and improving and improving. And by the way, if you've not ever traveled internationally lately, and I've done that 3 times this year, I'm filling out my questionnaire for my airline ticket, and they're asking me where I'm coming from, and there's a fee that I'm paying to offset my carbon footprint. Europe's already doing it in ways we weren't even thinking about, but it's time that we pay attention to that. You can not like it, but you can't ignore it.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, like I said, that's going to be a whole show just on that. So this is just a little precursor, but thanks for bringing that to the table. Again, there's a PDF. We're going to put it into the show notes. So that will be available after the fact. So, hey, we're going to start wrapping up here. This is the Event Marketers Toolbox. I'm showing off my fancy customized sneakers. Look at that logo right there. Boom. Bingo. I'm afraid to wear these because they're too nice.
11D.
But
11D.
Mm-hmm.
If you're gifting those to guests, 11D.
11D.
Size 11.
Don't hold your breath on getting those. They're going to take a little bit of time.
Okay.
Super. But that's a great idea. All right. So the Toolbox here, we're building this community, like-minded event people. We're having conversations every week, Thursday at noon. Thanks so much for a bunch of folks who are checking in here. Again, the recording is available on podcast platforms, and you can watch us in the future to see just how handsome we are in real life, and pretty as well for Dana. Less handsome, more attractive. Right. All right. Chris, how do people find you? Obviously, you brought a wealth of knowledge to the table. This is just scratching the surface. So this guy's got a ton of experience and information. What's the best way to reach out to you?
You know what? If we're not connected on LinkedIn, I'd say hit me up and make me part of your personal network. That's probably the fastest, easiest way. And I'm good about responding to that. So let's connect.
There you go. That's awesome. Listen, you started off with an introduction, and God bless you're involved in all of these different organizations, and you're taking time because you have a full-time gig, and you're doing all these things for the betterment of our community, for the betterment of our industry. So we really appreciate all the effort you're putting into it. Thank you so much, not only for joining us here today, but really the time that you spend above and beyond things you get paid for to make our industry, better and thriving. So thanks so much, I guess, on behalf of the Toolbox community, as it were.
Appreciate you saying that. This is just my turn, which will be coming to an end fairly soon. So hoping there's some folks inspired enough to grab their mitt and get in the game.
There we go. We always end with with 3 actionable takeaways. I feel like we maybe at least do one because we're running super late. But
Sure.
Chris, can you leave us with like one thing that that people can kind of take away from this?
I would say get involved. Get to know. You're doing it with your customer. We don't sell stuff anymore, right? We truly are partners, and lean into what that means, and get to know your clients and what their needs are. And if they care about ROI and how they're spending their money, you have information they need. So I know you got to transition to the stuff that's going to make you some money and make your company some money. But I just think the way to do that is to really, the quote is from the 1 Minute Manager guy. I will have more fun and enjoy more financial success when I stop trying to get what I want and I start helping other people get what they want. So, Spencer Johnson.
I like that.
Awesome. That's a great way to leave it. So
Be with you guys. I appreciate you.
thank you so much. Take care. And everybody, happy exhibiting, happy eventing out there. Enjoy the rest of your week. Cheers. We'll see you.